This is Crimson Moon, where every howl holds a secret. I'm Noktula, your storyteller. Tonight's story is a journey through love, power, and the pull of the bond. You're part of the pack now. Let's begin.
The sirens still rang in Celine Hartley's ears long after she'd parked the ambulance in the station bay. It was another late shift in Havenwood, and exhaustion clung to her bones like wet clothes. She rubbed her eyes, not from sleepiness alone, but from the lingering adrenaline of pulling a teenage boy from a crumpled sedan earlier that night. Her cabin on the edge of the forest was quiet, a solitude she had long cultivated. No neighbors, no interruptions, just the occasional rustle of wind through pine and the hoot of a night owl. It suited her. She dropped her bag by the door, shrugged off her jacket, and froze. In the bathroom mirror, the skin on her left shoulder blade caught the light oddly. At first she thought it was a bruise, a smear of ash-colored skin she didn't remember earning. She turned to look closer. It wasn't a bruise. It was too precise, a narrow crescent of silvery tissue pressed just below her collarbone, its edges faintly raised. She touched it. No pain, only a faint warmth. Well, that's new, she muttered to herself, pulling her t-shirt back into place. She'd seen rashes and burns on plenty of patients. Maybe it was dermatitis, or a reaction to the antiseptic she'd been splashed with earlier in the day. She filed it away in the mental box labeled "Things to Google Later" and went about, heating soup. By the time she finished eating, the mark had begun to itch. Not the kind of itch that wanted scratching, but something deeper, like her skin was aware of itself in a way it hadn't been before. She set her spoon down. A pale beam of moonlight had slipped through the narrow gap in her curtains. When it fell over her shoulder, the mark shimmered faintly, as though dusted with powdered silver. Celine's chest tightened. She backed away from the window, pulling the curtains shut. Great. Now my skin's a glow stick. That night, her dreams shifted. No sterile corridors, no sound of heart monitors. She was running, bare feet pounding over soil, air slicing past her ears, lungs burning in exhilaration rather than fatigue. Something vast and wild howled in her mind, and she wanted to answer. When she woke, the taste of cold night air still lingered in her mouth. By the third day, the crescent scar had deepened in color, and she had abandoned the dermatitis theory. It was no rash she'd ever seen, and it seemed to move with the moon's light, the silver brightening at dusk and dulling at dawn. Her laptop became her hunting ground for answers. Medical journals, dermatology forums, even folklore blogs she'd normally scroll past. The phrase that kept reappearing was moonmark, usually followed by grainy illustrations of wolves and old ballads, warning of night creatures. Celine clicked the tab closed. I'm not getting spooked over fairy tales. The wind picked up outside, whistling through the pine. She stood by the window, watching the trees sway. A shadow shifted at the tree line. She leaned forward. A man stood there, tall, broad-shouldered, the kind of presence that seemed carved from shadow. His coat was long, dark, but the hood didn't hide the eyes. Gold, bright enough to catch from this distance. Every instinct in. Her body screamed to step back. Instead, she gripped the curtain edge. He didn't move, didn't speak, just looked at her. A slow, deliberate assessment. The knock came moments later. She opened the door only enough to see him clearly. Up close, he was even more striking, his features sharp in a way that suggested they had been made for the night. Celine Hartley. His voice was deep, carrying an odd cadence, neither local nor easily placed. Her hand stayed on the doorframe. Depends who's asking. Kalenver, I've been tracking that mark on your shoulder. Her stomach tightened. Excuse me? The silvered scar. You've been called, Celine. Chosen. She laughed once, short and humorless. Right, and I suppose you're here to sell me crystals and essential oils. His expression didn't change. I'm here because something is hunting you, and because that mark won't let you stay what you are. Celine didn't let him inside. You should leave. I should. he agreed calmly. But I won't. Not while the wild wolf knows where you are. She frowned. Wild wolf? Kaelin studied her for a long moment, as if deciding how much to say. A cursed being. It consumes those marked by the moon to break its chains. You're not the first it's sought. You'll die if you stay here. Her mouth went dry. This is absurd. I'm a paramedic. I deal with facts, not whatever this is. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. And yet the scar glows in moonlight. And yet you dream of running through the trees. Selene's pulse skipped. How? I feel it, he interrupted. Your wolf is waking, and if you don't learn to control it, you'll be easy prey. She stared at him. The idea was insane. But the mark, the dreams, no explanation fit. Why? You? She asked. My duty is to protect the Moon Chosen, to bring them to the Blackwood, where the pack can keep them safe until they shift. And if I say no, then you die here. Or worse, you live long enough for the wild wolf to claim you. The silence between them stretched. Finally, she exhaled. Suppose I come. What happens then? You learn what you are. They stood on her porch while the wind hissed through the pines. Selene's instincts warred, flight and curiosity battling in equal measure. What does Moon Chosen even mean? She asked. It means you are part of the balance between the human and the wild. You carry light that the cursed seek to devour. Her lips parted, searching for some rebuttal, but the memory of that silver glow silenced her. Kaelin's gaze was steady. We don't have long. The wild wolf's scent is close. You can smell it? Yes, she swallowed. And your pack. They'll just welcome me in. They'll follow my lead, he said, with a quiet finality that made her wonder just how much authority he wielded. Selene glanced at her cabin, small, weathered, filled with the quiet life she had built. Walking away from it felt impossible, but so did staying. Fine, she said finally. I'll come, but I'm bringing my own med kit. Kaelin's mouth curved slightly. Bring only what you can carry on foot. We leave now. Selene stuffed essentials into her pack. Water, energy bars, flashlight, first aid kit. She hesitated over a framed photo on her shelf, then left it behind. When she stepped outside, Kaelin was waiting with the kind of stillness that made her uneasy. You keep looking at the trees, she noted. They're talking, he said simply, turning toward the trail. Keep up. The forest swallowed them quickly. Kaelin moved with an ease that made no sound at all. She stumbled twice before finding a rhythm. After an hour, they stopped beside a moss-covered rock. Kaelin's head lifted slightly, nostrils flaring. What? She whispered. Something passed through here. Not him, but close. Not him. The wild wolf's scent is heavier. This was just a scout. Move. They pressed on, her breath frosting in the cooling night air. Despite herself, Selene found her senses sharpening. The distant trickle of a stream, the faint musk of animal fur somewhere ahead. Kaelin glanced back once. You're feeling it already. Feeling what? The forest as it is. Not just sights and sounds. The pulse. She said nothing, but her chest tightened with a strange recognition. Hours later, when they paused again, Kaelin's voice was softer. You've left your old life behind now, Selene. Every step you take is toward what you were meant to be. She didn't answer, but she didn't turn back either. The moon was climbing higher when Kaelin slowed his pace. They had left the narrow trail hours ago, weaving a route that Selene suspected was more about evading something than taking the shortest path. We're almost there, he said, glancing over his shoulder. She doubted that. The forest seemed endless. Define almost. Kaelin ignored the question. Quiet your steps. Listen. Selene frowned but did as he said. The wind hissed faintly in the needles overhead. A distant owl called once, then again. Somewhere. To their left, water moved, the steady murmur of a stream. "What am I listening for?" she asked. For what shouldn't be there? She tried, but her ears didn't pick up anything unusual. "You're going to have to narrow it down. I'm not a mind reader." "No, but your wolf will be." That earned him a look. "You keep saying that, like it's a given." "It is. Your mark wouldn't glow if it weren't already waking." She adjusted her pack. "You make it sound like a pregnancy." That pulled the faintest smirk from him. "In a way, it is. Something inside. You is growing into what it's meant to be. You'll either fight it and suffer, or let it come and find your place." She didn't answer. The truth was, she had been feeling something. The trees seemed closer, the dark less oppressive than it should have been. She could hear her own breathing sinking with Kaylin's strides ahead of her. He stopped abruptly, crouching low. Celine mirrored him, the ground cold against her palm. "What now?" she whispered. "Fresh tracks, not his. But a shifter passed this way tonight." He rose. "We move faster." The forest opened unexpectedly into a valley cloaked in mist. At its center, a cluster of low stone dwellings huddled around a wide fire pit, the flames throwing gold across the fog. Selena slowed, scanning the shapes moving in the half-light. People, though even from a distance their stillness felt different. Kaylin stepped forward first, and a voice rang out from the shadows. "Kaylin Ver returns," it called, female and sharp. An older woman emerged from between the dwellings. Her hair was iron grey, her eyes keen as they took in Celine. She walked with the quiet assurance of someone who had no need to prove herself. "Ara," Kaylin greeted her with a short incline of his head. "This is Celine Hartley." Ara's gaze dropped to Celine's shoulder. "The mark is true." Celine resisted the urge to cover it. "Glad to hear it," she said dryly. Another figure stepped forward, broad, with a scar running down one cheek. His expression was not welcoming. "Another outsider?" he asked. "We've enough mouths to feed without strays." Kaylin's tone cooled. "Rurik. She's moon-chosen. She stays." Rurik looked her up and down, unimpressed. "We'll see if she can pull her weight." Selena's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. Ara stepped between them, motioning Celine toward one of the dwellings. "Come, you'll stay here tonight. The den is no place for posturing when the moon's this high." Ara's dwelling was warmer than Celine expected, lit by a fire in a low hearth. The air smelled faintly of herbs. "You'll rest here," Ara said, pulling a blanket from a chest. "Tomorrow, Kalin will begin your instruction." Selene lowered herself onto a bench by the wall. "Instruction in what exactly?" "In surviving yourself." Ara's eyes softened. "You've stepped into a world that won't slow for you to catch your breath." Celine thought of Rorik's hostility. "Your people don't seem thrilled about me being here. They're protective of what's theirs," Ara replied. "And you are not theirs. Not yet." Celine's mind replayed the way Kaylin had stood between her and Rurik, the quiet warning in his voice. She hadn't asked for his protection, but she hadn't refused it either. Ara gave her a cup of something hot and bitter. "Drink. You'll sleep easier." She did, though the taste was sharp enough to make her wince. When Selene lay down, the last thing she saw before sleep took her was Kaylin standing outside in the mist, his gaze sweeping the shadows like a sentry, who knew the night was not empty. Morning in the valley was muted, the mist clinging to the low ground. Ara set a bowl of porridge before Selena without preamble. "You'll need strength today," she said. Selene ate in silence, aware of movement outside, voices, the shuffle of boots on damp earth. When she stepped out, Kaylin was waiting. "Walk with me." They left the den, following a narrow path that climbed toward a ridge. "You should understand the world you've entered," Kaylin said. "Our kind live between two realms, the human and the wild. Normally the veil between them holds, but it's thinning." Celine glanced at him. "Because of the wild wolf?" "In part. Its curse is a wound in the balance. Moon chosen, are born to heal it, which is why it hunts you. Her grip tightened on the strap of her pack. And this veil, I'm supposed to… what, stitch it back together? You'll know what to do when the time comes, he said, without looking at her. That's comforting. They reached the ridge, and the forest spread below like a sea of green shadows. Kaelin stood beside her, the wind tugging at his coat. This place is your home now, he said, for as long as you choose to survive. The days that followed settled into a rhythm. Mornings with Ara, learning the names of plants and the subtle signs of animal trails. Afternoons with Kaelin, where the lessons were less about skill and more about instinct. Stop thinking with your head, he told her one afternoon as they moved through a stand of birch. Your wolf doesn't care for logic. My wolf doesn't exist, she shot back. He stepped close enough that she caught the faint scent of pine on him. Then why do you hear my footsteps behind you even when I'm silent? She didn't answer. They moved on, and when a branch snapped somewhere to their left, Selene felt the hair rise on her arms. Kaelin's eyes sharpened. Good. You felt that before you heard it. That night, Ara found her outside, staring at the moon through the trees. You're standing on a threshold, Ara said. 1 foot in the life you knew, 1 in the life you'll have to claim. You can't keep both. Selene looked back at the light pooling over the valley, the silver threading through the mist. She didn't know which life she wanted, but she knew the old one was already too far behind to return to. The night was not silent. Selene woke to the sound of muffled voices outside Ara's dwelling. The air smelled different, sharp, almost metallic. She pushed the blanket aside and crept to the doorway. Rorik stood at the fire pit, his shoulders tight, speaking low to Kaelin. I saw movement in the tree line. Too large for deer, too deliberate. Alone? Kaelin's voice was all steel. Rorik shook his head. I caught scent, faint, but wrong, like rot. Ara stepped out from the shadows, wrapping a cloak around herself. The curse is probing the valley. Kaelin's gaze slid towards Selene. Stay inside. She stepped out anyway. If it's here, you can't just… This isn't a lesson, he cut in. It's a hunt. You're not ready. She hated that his words sparked both anger and the sting of truth. But when he and Rorik vanished into the mist, she didn't return to bed. Instead, she climbed the slope above the dwellings, the fog curling around her like cold fingers. She heard it before she saw it, a wet, rattling breath. From between the trees, something stepped into the moonlight. Wolf-shaped, but wrong. Its limbs were too long, the eyes glowing sickly yellow, the fur matted with blackened patches. It turned its head toward her, and the world narrowed to that gaze. Her mark burned, not like fire, more like something alive inside her was clawing to get out. She staggered back, clutching her shoulder. Then Kaelin's voice ripped through the trees. Selene! The creature lunged, but an arrow from the ridge struck its flank, and it shrieked before vanishing back into the dark. Kaelin reached her in moments, grabbing her by the arms. What part of stay inside did you not understand? She swallowed hard, her voice trembling. I saw it. I felt it. His eyes searched hers, reading something he didn't like. Then it's closer to finding you than I thought. The next morning, the den was restless. Word of the creature's appearance had spread, and eyes followed Selene wherever she went. Rorik didn't bother lowering his voice. You drew it here. Selene stopped mid-step. You think I wanted that thing near your people? You're a beacon for it, he said. Every day you stay, you risk all of us. Kaelin appeared beside her. Enough, Rorik! No, Rorik growled. If she's going to stay, she proves herself. Tonight. Ara's sharp tone cut between them. And if she fails, you'll throw her out into the woods to die. If she fails, Rorik said, at least she'll know the risk she brings. Selene crossed her arms. Fine. What's the test? Rurik's smile was humorless. A simple one. Survive a night in the Eastern Watch. Kaylin's jaw tightened. That's where the Veil's weakest. Exactly, Rurik said. Celine met his gaze, refusing to look away. I'll do it. Kaylin stepped in close enough for only her to hear. You don't have to prove anything to him. Yes, she said quietly. I do. The Eastern Watch wasn't much more than a half-collapsed tower on the edge of the valley. The air there felt heavier, and even the trees leaned away from it. Their trunks twisted like they were trying to escape. Kaylin walked her to the base. If anything happens, I know. Shout. That, or shift, he said. She rolled her eyes. Still can't do that on command. Then tonight's as good a time to learn as any. She climbed into the tower as the last of the light faded. The wind whispered through the cracks, carrying faint sounds from the forest. Too soft to name, but never quite stopping. Hours passed. Then, without warning, the smell hit her. Rot, just like last night. She pressed herself to the wall, scanning the tree line. A shadow moved between the trunks, then another. The curse's creatures didn't travel alone. Her mark throbbed, and a low sound rumbled in her throat. She didn't think. She moved. By the time the first creature leapt for the tower, she was already on the ground, her hands not entirely her own. Her vision tunneled, colours sharpening, and the world slowed. She caught the creature mid-lunge, slamming it into the dirt with a strength she didn't recognize. When the second came, she tore through it before realizing she was using claws, not hands. Then Kaylin was there, grabbing her shoulders. Selene, look at me! Her chest heaved, the scent of blood thick in her nose. She blinked, and her hands were her own again, though they trembled violently. Kaylin's eyes were unreadable. Now you know what you're capable of. Word of what happened spread fast. Rurik didn't say anything to her that morning, but he didn't need to. The lack of his usual scorn was loud enough. Ara found Selene by the stream, washing the blood from her hands. How much do you remember? Enough, Selene said. It was like I wasn't completely me. You were both, Ara said. Human and wolf. That balance is what the curse fears. Selene shook her head. It didn't feel balanced. It felt like if Kaylin hadn't been there, I would have... She trailed off. Killed them? Ara supplied. You would have. And sometimes, that's the only choice. Later, Kaylin joined, her at the fire. You did well, he said. That's your version of a compliment, she asked. His mouth quirked. Don't get used to it. For the first time since she arrived, Selene felt something shift, not in her body, but in the way the pack looked at her, like maybe she wasn't just passing through. The uneasy calm didn't last. 2 nights later, a sentry returned to the den half dead, bleeding from deep gouges across his chest. It wasn't the smaller ones, he gasped. It was him, the wild wolf. Selene felt her mark flare before the words even sank in. Kaylin's face darkened. Where? Near the southern ridge. He didn't chase me, he just watched. Ara's hands moved quickly over the man's wounds, but her voice was grim. He's testing the edges of the veil. Rurik's tone was colder. No, he's testing her. Selene didn't argue. She already knew it was true. That night, as the fire burned low, she found Kaylin at the edge of the valley, staring south. He's not going to stop, is he? She asked. Kaylin shook his head. No. And the next time you see him, there won't be any mist to hide in. Selene's fingers tightened around the knife at her belt. Good. The southern ridge loomed dark under a clouded moon. Kaylin had taken only 3 with him, Rurik, Ara, and Selene, claiming stealth would serve them better than numbers. The climb was silent until Rurik finally muttered, We shouldn't have brought her. Selene shot him a look. You think I can't handle it? I think you're the reason it's here, he said flatly. Enough, Kaylin growled without turning. Eyes forward. They reached the ridge crest, and the world beyond seemed wrong. The trees grew at unnatural angles. Their bark blackened. The ground cracked as if it hadn't seen life in years. Ara knelt, fingers brushing a paw print in the soil. He's close, and not alone. Selina crouched beside her, tracing, the deep claw marks gouged into stone. Why mark territory this far out? He's not marking, Kaelin said grimly. He's warning. The sound came from below. A howl so low it rattled the bones, answered by others in the distance. Rurik's hand went to his weapon. We can still pull back. No, Selene said. If we keep waiting for him to come to us, we'll never. Be ready. Kaelin glanced at her, unreadable, then gave a short nod. We hold here. If he comes, we see him before he sees the den. But the wild wolf was already watching. Hours passed with no movement. The others dozed in shifts, but Selene stayed awake, her mark prickling every time the wind shifted. Then she saw them, two pale lights low to the ground, moving between the trees. Eyes! Kaelin, she hissed. He was awake in an instant, bow in hand. Where? There. She pointed, but the eyes were gone. The forest was still for a heartbeat too long. Then a branch snapped to their left, another to the right. They're surrounding us, Ara murmured. The first creature broke. From cover, all snarling teeth and matted fur, Selene met it head-on, her blade flashing. Another lunged from the side, but Rurik intercepted, driving his spear deep. Through the chaos, Selene felt him, the wild wolf, not among the attackers, but near enough that his presence pressed on, her mind like a weight. She caught sight of him between the trees. He was massive, his coat the color of night, his eyes molten gold. He didn't move, didn't need to. The smaller beast fought in his stead, buying him time to study her. Kaelin's voice cut through the fight. Selene, stay with us. But she couldn't look away. Something in those eyes was pulling at her, challenging her. The moment broke when one of the beasts slammed her to the ground. She rolled free, drove her knife into its throat, and when she looked again, the wild wolf was gone. They made it back, to the den at dawn, bloodied but alive. Ara's hands never stopped moving, binding Rurik's arm, checking the gash along Kaelin's ribs. You saw him, Kaelin said quietly to Selene once they were alone. She nodded. He didn't attack. He was measuring you, Kaelin said. He'll strike when he's certain he can break you. She frowned. Then I have to be ready before he decides that. That's not the problem, Kaelin said. The problem is, the more you fight, the more the curse will notice you. And when it does, he let the silence finish the thought. Later, Ara found her by the fire. You can't win this with strength alone, she warned. The wild wolf is more than teeth and claws. He's a mind that's learned to bend the curse to his will. Selene studied her. And you know that how? Ara hesitated. Because I've seen him before. Years ago, before you were marked. He wasn't always this. Selene's voice was barely a whisper. What happened to him? The same thing that's happening to you, Ara said. He just stopped fighting it. That night, the den's outer sentries returned with something unexpected. A carcass, freshly killed, left just beyond the protective wards. It wasn't one of the cursed beasts. It was a stag, whole except for its eyes. Rurik eyed it with disgust. What kind of message is this? A gift, Ara said grimly. Or a warning. He's telling us he can walk right up to our gates. Kaelin turned to Selene. He's escalating. She stared at the lifeless animal, the empty sockets. Then so will I. Kaelin's jaw tightened. Selene, I'm not waiting for him to choose the ground we fight on, she said. We take the fight to him. You'd walk into his territory blind? Rurik demanded. I'd rather that than wait here while he picks us off one by one, she shot back. Ara looked, between them. If you go, you'll need more than weapons. You'll need to know how to resist his pull. Selene's gaze locked on hers. Then teach me. Ara's lessons began before dawn. They trained on the cliff edge, where the wind howled so loud, it drowned out all other sound. Close your eyes, Ara ordered. When you feel the mark stir, don't push it down, shape it. Celine did as told, letting the slow burn in her shoulder rise. Her breathing deepened, the air rich with scents she couldn't name. The world sharpened even behind closed lids. Good, Ara said. Now picture him, the wild wolf, and push him out. Celine tried, but the image only grew clearer. Golden, eyes, teeth bared in something that wasn't quite a snarl. The pull was magnetic, dragging at her will. Her hands curled into fists. It's not working. That's because you're fighting the wrong way, Ara said. Don't shove him out. Lock him in a cage inside your mind. The next time the pull came, Selena imagined iron bars slamming down between them. The pressure eased, if only slightly. She opened her eyes to find Kaelin watching from a distance. How long until she's ready? He asked Ara. Ara's reply was measured. If the wild wolf comes tomorrow, she's not. Celine wiped sweat from her brow. Then I guess I'd better be ready today. The forest changed long before they crossed the boundary line. The trees stood too close together, their trunks thick and twisted as though trying to choke each other. No birds sang here. The air smelled faintly of rot, yet every breath Selene took was sharp and cold, clearing her head even as unease coiled in her gut. Kaelin moved at the front, silent, his eyes constantly scanning. Ara kept close to Selene, whispering every so often, "Don't let the pull grow roots. Keep it in the cage." Behind them, Rorik muttered under his breath, "Feels like walking into a grave." Not helping, Selene said, though she agreed. They reached a shallow ravine where a thin mist clung to the earth like a living thing. The silence broke with a single sound, an echoing crack, like a branch snapping somewhere ahead. Kaelin froze, holding up a hand. "We're not alone." 3 shapes emerged from the mist, humanoid but wrong. Their limbs were too long, their joints bent the wrong way, their eyes glowing faintly blue. "Cursed," Ara breathed. But not like before. Selena's mark. Burned. The pull came hard and fast, pressing against her mind, urging her to step forward, to join. She clenched her fists. "Cage," she muttered to herself. "Cage it." One of the creatures lunged, impossibly fast. Rorik shoved Selene aside and took the hit square in the shoulder. His roar of pain tore through the forest. Kaelin's blade flashed, cutting down the attacker, but the other 2 melted back into the mist. "They were sent to test us," Ara said. "No," Selene said quietly. "They were sent to remind me. I'm already part of his game." They camped that night in a shallow cave. Rorik sat against the wall, pale but stubborn, insisting he could still fight. "Stop lying," Kaelin said, tightening the bandage on his shoulder. "That wound's deep. You slow down, you'll get us killed." "I'm not leaving you here," Rorik shot back. "Then keep up," Kaelin said. Selene crouched by the fire, staring at the flickering flames. "If he keeps sending them like that, we'll be worn down before we even see him." "That's the point," Ara said. "The wild wolf doesn't fight clean. He'll drain us first." Kaelin's jaw worked. "Then we bind ourselves. No matter what happens, no matter what we see or hear, we don't break from each other." Rorik snorted. "That's a pretty oath for a death march." "It's survival," Kaelin said, drawing his dagger. "Blood, so the curse knows we're one." They each made the cut, palm to palm, binding the promise. Selene felt the mark burn again as their blood mingled, but this time it wasn't pulling her away. It was grounding her. The next day, the forest narrowed into a natural corridor of stone. The air grew thicker and the pull came again, stronger than ever. Selene stopped mid-step. The others turned, but before anyone could speak, a voice slid into her mind. "You came to me." It was deep and resonant, yet almost curious. She swallowed. "Get out of my head." Ara's eyes snapped to her. He's speaking to you? You're stronger than the last ones, the voice continued. But you'll break too. Not yours, she said aloud. Kaelin stepped in front of her. What's he saying? He's trying to get me to believe I'm already his, Celine said. The voice chuckled, low and dangerous. Not yet, but soon. The sound faded, but the pull didn't. Celine could still feel him. Closer now. Rurik gripped his weapon tighter. Then let's find him before he finds us. By dusk, they reached a clearing littered with bones. Some were animal, but far too many were human. The center held a mound of stone, blackened and cracked, as though scorched by fire long ago. This is it, Ara whispered. His den. The moment they stepped into the clearing, the forest went deathly still. From the shadows of the stone mound, he emerged, larger than any wolf Celine had seen, his eyes molten gold, his fur streaked with scars. The wild wolf's voice echoed both in her mind and aloud. Little hunter, you've come far. Selina raised her blade. I'm not here to talk. His gaze flicked to Kaelin, then Ara, then Rurik. You think you can bind her away from me? She already carries me inside her. Then you'll have to rip her apart to take her, Kaelin said coldly. The wild wolf's lips curled in something like a grin. Gladly. The fight exploded before Celine could breathe. He moved like shadow and steel, slamming Kaelin aside, tearing through Rurik's guard. Ara hurled burning powder into his face, buying Celine a heartbeat to strike. Her blade sank into his side, but instead of weakening him, the mark on her shoulder flared with such heat she screamed. Ours! The voice thundered inside her head. The fight became a blur of claws, steel, and blood. Rurik went down first, the wild wolf's strike sending him crashing into the bone pile. He didn't rise. Kaelin shouted his name, but the wolf turned on him next, jaws snapping for his throat. Celine lunged, catching the wolf's attention just long enough for Kaelin to roll free. Ara's voice cut through the chaos. Celine! The cage! Lock him down now! Celine shut her eyes for the briefest second, imagined the iron bars slamming down in her mind, and drove her blade deeper into the wolf's side. This time, he staggered. Kaelin was on him instantly, pinning him against the mound. Do it! Celine's mark blazed, and she pushed, not away from him, but into the part of him that still remembered being something else. She felt it, a flicker of a man's face beneath the monster. But the cost came sharp and cruel. The mark drank her strength, leaving her barely standing. The wild wolf ripped free, retreating into the shadows with a final snarl. Not yet. Silence fell. Kaelin moved to Rurik, but one look told them both the truth. His chest didn't rise. Ara's hands trembled as she closed his eyes. He stayed to keep us moving forward. Celine swallowed hard, staring into the darkness where the wolf had vanished. Then we finish it. For him. They buried Rurik at dawn. It wasn't a proper grave, just a mound of earth under a crooked blackwood tree, marked by his axe driven deep into the soil. The ground was too hard to dig deep, so they covered him with stones, each one placed in silence. When the last was laid, Kaelin spoke first. He was stubborn, loud, and never listened, but I trusted him with my life. And he gave it for ours. Ara's voice was steady but quiet. He was the only one who didn't flinch when I told the truth about what I am. That matters. Celine knelt, pressing her palm to the earth. He told me once that fear only has power if you let it. I won't let it. They stood there a long moment before Kaelin finally turned toward the forest. We move. If we wait, the wolf regains strength. We can't give him time. The path ahead grew darker as they went, the mist thickening, curling around their ankles like grasping fingers. Every so often, Celine felt the wolf's presence, a faint, taunting pressure at the back of her mind. By nightfall, they reached the edge of a narrow gorge, the only crossing a rope bridge swaying in the wind. Ara eyed it warily. If he knows. We're coming. This will be where he tries to cut us off. He knows, Celine said. He's been waiting. The bridge creaked under their weight. Below, the gorge roared with black water, the current foaming over jagged rock. Kaelin went. First, Celine in the middle, Ara last. The wind picked up halfway across, making the ropes groan. That's when the first arrow hissed past Celine's ear. Down! Kaelin barked, ducking as another arrow sliced through the air. From the far cliff, shadowy figures moved. More of the twisted, cursed ones, their bodies warped into lean, long-limbed predators. They're cutting the ropes, Ara shouted. Selena's pulse thundered. She could feel the wolf's amusement, a deep chuckle brushing her thoughts. Let go. Fall. To me. No, she hissed under her breath. She surged forward, keeping low. Kaelin was already slashing at one attacker who had crawled onto the bridge from the other side. The ropes snapped behind Ara with a sound like breaking bones. She lunged forward, barely grabbing Celine's outstretched hand. Kaelin pulled them, both onto the far side, just as the rest of the bridge collapsed into the gorge. Ara panted, shoving her hair from her face. He's not just trying to stop us. He's trying to make us waste what we have left. Celine glanced at Kaelin. Then we stopped holding back. They made camp in a sheltered hollow lit by the pale glow of fungal growth clinging to the rock. It was there that Ara finally produced the small obsidian disc she had kept hidden. What is that? Kaelin asked. A memory stone, she said. It shows the truth of a curse's birth. She looked at Celine. If you want to kill him, you need to know what made him. Celine hesitated. And if I don't like what I see, then you'll understand why he's like this, Ara said. And you'll decide if he dies or if something worse happens. She pressed the stone into Celine's hands. The instant Selene touched it, heat surged through her mark. The world around her shifted. She stood in a great hall of stone, torches burning. A man knelt before a circle of elders, tall, broad, with hair like dark copper and eyes molten gold. Not a monster, a man. You defied the pact, one elder said. I saved them, the man replied. You cursed us all. The hall exploded in shouting, but Selene's gaze locked on his. She saw the moment fury broke him, the moment his teeth lengthened, his body tore itself apart, fur replacing skin. She gasped and dropped the stone. Ara caught it. Now you see. He wasn't born a monster. He was made one. Celine's chest ached. That doesn't mean he gets to live. The wolf was close now. The forest itself seemed to lean toward them. Trees arching over the path. Shadows deepening until the moonlight barely touched the ground. Celine felt no need to speak. The pull was constant now, almost a physical tether between them. They reached, a clearing ringed by stones carved with runes. In the center stood the wolf. No ambush, no retreat, just waiting. You came, he said, voice a low rumble. I told you I would, Celine said, stepping forward. He looked at Kaelin and Ara. Leave her, she belongs to me. No, Kaelin said simply. A snarl ripped from the wolf's throat. Then you die with her. The fight erupted instantly. Kaelin's blade flashed, Ara's powders burst in blinding flares, and Selena wove between them, striking for his heart. But he was stronger now, faster. Every blow they landed seemed to heal almost instantly. You can't kill what you carry inside, his voice whispered in her mind. Then I'll tear you out, she snarled. She drove her blade into his chest, and this time didn't pull away. She pushed her mark into his, feeling their essences clash in a violent storm. The world went white. Selene stood in a vast, empty space, face to face with the man from the memory, the man before the curse. You shouldn't be here, he said, his voice tired. You've been hunting me since the moment I was marked, she said. Why? Because I thought if I made you like me, I wouldn't be alone. His gaze dropped. I was wrong. Selene felt the weight of his pain, but also the countless lives he had ended. Then end it. He gave a faint, almost relieved smile. Free me. When she opened her eyes, she was on her knees in the clearing. The wolf lay before her still, his body already breaking apart into ash. Kaelin knelt beside her. It's done. Ara looked at the crumbling remains. Not just for him, for all of them. Selene stood, swaying slightly. Then we leave this place, and we never come back. They walked away together, the mist finally thinning, the forest beginning to breathe again. Behind them, the last of the wild wolf's ashes scattered into the wind. And with it, the pull in Selene's mind faded to nothing. The forest was quiet. Not the haunted, watchful silence that had stalked them for days, but the natural hush of wind through leaves and distant birdsong returning. They had walked until the light bled into evening. Selene kept waiting for that familiar weight in her chest, the pull towards something dark, but it never came. The absence felt almost unnatural. Kaelin finally broke the silence. I didn't think it would end this way. Ara gave a faint, humorless smile. You expected more screaming? Something like that. Selene glanced between them. It's not over yet. We've still got to cross the northern plains. And when we get back, she trailed off. You mean the elders? Kaelin said. Selene nodded. They'll want to know how it ended, and they'll decide what comes next. They stopped for the night beside a shallow stream. The fire crackled low, casting light over their faces. Ara sat apart, sorting through the small pouches on her belt. You're leaving us when we get back, Selene said to her. Ara didn't look up. I was never meant to stay. You've got your people. I've got mine. Kaelin frowned. You're not going to tell them about the stone? Her fingers stilled. Some truths do more harm than good. Selene met her gaze. And some truths free people. Ara looked away. Not this one. The northern plains stretched endlessly, golden, grass swaying in the wind. After the dense, cursed forest, the openness felt almost wrong. Every movement on the horizon visible, every shadow easy to spot. They travelled in near silence, saving their strength. The wind carried the smell of rain, and storm clouds gathered. By afternoon, as the first drops began to fall, they spotted movement ahead. Riders. Kaelin's hand went to his sword. Scouts. From the eastern packs. Selene kept her pace steady. Then we keep walking. No sudden moves. The riders slowed as they approached, their leader raising a hand in greeting. He was tall, his armor etched with the crest of the Stormfang. Pack, you've come from the west, he said. What news of the cursed forest? Selene's jaw tightened. It's gone. The wolf is dead. The man's eyes narrowed in disbelief. Dead? Kaelin stepped forward. We saw him fall. The land will heal now. The rider studied them for a long moment before nodding. Then you should come with us. The council will want to hear everything, Ara muttered under her breath, and weigh every word we say. The council chamber was warmer than Selene, remembered, though perhaps that was because the cold, oppressive shadow of the curse no longer reached here. The elders sat in a semicircle, their faces unreadable. Tell us what happened, the High Elder said. Selene recounted everything. Rurik's death, the crossing of the gorge, the fight in the clearing. She left nothing out, except the memory, stone. That was Ara's choice, and she wouldn't betray it. When she finished, murmurs rippled through the elders. You destroyed the wolf, one said, but in doing so, you took his power into yourself. Is that not so? Selene's stomach knotted. I burned it out. There's nothing left of him in me. The High Elder leaned forward. And we're to take you at your word. Kaelin's voice cut through the chamber. She saved us all. If you can't trust her, then you've learned nothing from what just happened. The High Elder studied Selene for a long moment, then finally said, Very well, you have our thanks, and our watchful eyes. Ara's lips twitched faintly. Gratitude, wrapped in suspicion. Classic. The days after the council meeting passed in a strange blur. The packs began sending scouts into the newly freed lands, and trade routes that had been abandoned for years were already being planned again. Celine found herself restless. The hunt was over, but she didn't know what to do without it. Ara found her by the training yard one evening. "I'm leaving at dawn," she said simply. Celine nodded. "You won't come back?" Ara smirked faintly. "If I do, it won't be for council politics. It'll be because something's trying to kill you again." Kaelin joined them, carrying a wrapped bundle. "For you," he said to Ara. She unwrapped it to find Rurik's axe, the blade cleaned and the handle repaired. Her smile was small but genuine. "I'll take care of it." When morning came, Selena and Kaelin watched her go. A small figure, disappearing into the open road. "She'll be all right," Kaelin said. Selena watched until Ara was gone from sight. "I know." Weeks passed. The land healed faster than anyone expected. Grass growing where the soil had been blackened. Rivers running clear again. Celine trained daily, but her nights were still haunted by dreams. Not of the wolf, those were gone, but of the man he had been before the curse. One evening, as the sun sank low, Kaelin found her standing on the ridge overlooking the plains. "You're thinking about leaving," he said. She didn't deny it. "There's more out there, more broken places. If I can help—" "You've given enough," he interrupted. "But if you go, I'll go with you." She looked at him then, the fading light catching the faint scars across his face. "You don't have to." "I know." He smiled faintly. "But I want to." They stood in silence for a long moment. Below them, the plains rippled with wind, the horizon stretching endlessly ahead. The curse was gone, but the road was still open, and they would walk it together. 3 moons after the wolf's fall, the plains were busy again. Traders, scouts, and pack messengers crossed daily, carrying news from one end of the territories to the other. Celine walked through the market square, watching the bustle. It should have been comforting, but she felt out of place. Kaelin caught up with her, carrying 2 steaming meat pies. "If you keep staring like that, people are going to think you're judging them." "I'm not judging," Selene said, though she didn't take her eyes off the crowd. "It's just strange. I remember when this place was empty." "That's the point," he said, handing her a pie. "We fought so it wouldn't be empty again." Before she could answer, a rider galloped into the square, his cloak marked with the stone fang crest. He swung down and called out for the council. "Guard." Selena and Kaelin exchanged a look. Trouble. The messenger's news spread quickly. The eastern border was in dispute. Without the wolf's curse keeping packs apart, old rivalries had flared again. The council chamber was tense. Representatives from 3 packs shouted over one another. "They're moving their markers onto our land. You've no proof of that. Your scouts are trespassing on sacred ground." Celine stepped forward. "Arguing here won't fix anything. Let me see the border myself." The High Elder frowned. "You're not a council envoy." "I'm the one who's walked through those lands when they were dangerous," she said evenly. "I know the old trails, the markers you've forgotten." Kaelin crossed his arms. "And she won't go alone." After a tense pause, the High Elder relented. "Fine, but you leave at first light. And if you bring back war, it's on your head." Ara's voice came from the doorway. "Guess I came back at the right time." Selena turned, startled to see her. "You said you wouldn't return." "I lied," Ara said simply. "And you're welcome." The 3 of them rode east, the air growing colder with each passing day. The borderlands were wild still, though the curse had not touched them directly. One night, camped by a ridge, they heard movement in the dark. Kaelin drew his sword. Not wolves. Figures stepped into the firelight. Gaunt men and women, their eyes hollow. "We live here," one said in a rasping voice. "And you bring trouble." Celine stepped forward. We're not here to take your land. We're here to stop a fight. The man studied her. Fights never stop. They just wait. They learned the truth quickly. The border markers had been moved, but not by either of the packs in dispute. The settlers here, caught between territories, had shifted them to keep both sides away. They'll kill us if they know, a woman whispered. Ara leaned back against a tree. So we either protect them or watch another war start. Celine didn't hesitate. We protect them. At dawn, Celine led both pack representatives to the disputed line. She pointed to the markers. These were moved to keep you out. Both of you. The people who live here have no pack to defend them, the Stormfang envoy scoffed. Then they should choose a side. Or, Celine said, you both agree to leave them alone. That's not how borders work. The Stonefangs, envoy replied. Kaelin stepped in. It is now, unless you want to explain to the council why you ignored the woman who killed the wolf. The threat hung in the air. Neither envoy wanted to be seen as provoking the one who had freed the lands. Finally, the Stormfang envoy said, fine, but the markers stay where they are. The Stonefang envoy agreed reluctantly. Celine nodded. Then it's settled. These people keep their land. When the envoys left, the settlers gathered around. The gaunt man from before met Celine's eyes. They'll remember this. So, will I? She said quietly. They returned to the plains as winter began to bite. The council greeted them with polite acknowledgement, but no warmth. Peace rarely won applause. Ara didn't linger. At the gate, she clasped Celine's arm. This time I mean it. I'm heading north. Celine smiled faintly. Until something tries to kill me again. Exactly, Ara said, and was gone. Kaelin found Celine later, watching snow drift across the ridge. You could stay, he said. Train the next generation, live without chasing danger. She looked out over the land. Or I could see what's beyond it. There's more out there, places no one's walked in years. Kaelin sighed. You're going, aren't you? Yes, she said. And you? He smiled. I told you before, where you go, I go. They set out at dawn 2 days later, leaving the council halls behind. The wind was sharp, the road long, and the world ahead vast. The curse was gone. But their story was still being written. The world beyond the plains was nothing like Celine imagined. Snow stretched in every direction, a cold sea swallowing the horizon. The wind carried no scent, no familiar traces of pack life, only the sharp tang of ice. Kaelin adjusted the fur cloak around his shoulders. You realize we might be walking into nothing. Celine kept moving. Nothing is still better than staying still. They reached the remains of a fire pit half buried in snow. Someone had been here, recently, before they could investigate. A voice rang out behind them. You're terrible at covering tracks. Celine turned to see Ara, her hood dusted white. I thought you were going north, Celine said. I did, Ara replied, stepping closer. Turns out, north is worse than I expected, so I'm heading further north, and here you are in my way again. Kaelin groaned. Of course she's coming with us. They followed Ara across the frozen river, where jagged cliffs shielded them from the wind. People live out here, Kaelin asked. Ara nodded. Not like the packs. They're wanderers. No borders, no alphas. But they have other rules. Break them, and you disappear. By nightfall, they reached a cluster of tents lit from within by dim firelight. Figures in heavy furs emerged to greet them, faces obscured by masks carved from bone. The leader, a tall woman with braids laced in silver thread, studied Celine. You're the one who killed the cursed Alpha. Celine inclined her head. I freed my lands from the wolf. The woman's gaze sharpened. Good. Then maybe you can free ours from what hunts beneath the ice. Over steaming bowls of broth, the masked woman, whose name was Naira, explained the threat. It comes when the moon is high, Naira said. The ice groans, the ground shakes, and something pulls the unwary down. It has taken 20 of ours in 2 winters. Ara leaned forward. And you want us to kill it? Naira's eyes met Celine's. if you can. That night, they joined the hunters on the frozen flats. The moon turned the snow silver. When the first tremor came, Selena felt it through her boots. Kalen drew his blade. The ice cracked, and a shape surged upward. Massive, black-scaled, its maw filled with teeth like broken spears. "Move!" Selene shouted, diving aside as the beast lunged. The fight was chaos. Every strike seemed to glance off the creature's thick hide. Kalen drove his sword into its neck, but the blade lodged fast. The beast roared, thrashing violently. "Eyes!" Selene called, pulling a spear from one of Nira's hunters. She sprinted across the ice, leapt, and drove the weapon into the creature's right eye. It screamed, a deep, shuddering sound that seemed to shake the sky. Ara darted in from the other side, cutting deep into its jaw. Blood steamed against the snow. With a final heave, Selene wrenched the spear free and drove it into the other eye. The beast collapsed, the ice cracking beneath its weight. Nira and her people surrounded the carcass, their masked faces unreadable. "You've done what?" "We could not," Nira said. "You've earned safe passage." Selene glanced at Kalen and Ara. "We weren't looking for passage, but thank you." They left Nira's camp 2 days later, the sky a pale blue above the endless snow. Ara walked with them for a while before stopping. "This is where we part," she said. "There's a coastline further north I need to see. They say the sea there glows at night." Selene smiled faintly. "You'll send word?" "You know I won't," Ara replied, though there was no malice in it. "But if you ever follow me, bring better boots." They clasped forearms, and Ara turned north alone. Kalen looked at Selene. "And us?" She gazed at the horizon. "We keep going until there's nowhere left to walk. Then we decide." The snow crunched under their boots as they moved forward, together, 2 figures against the vast white, their path uncertain, but their choice their own.